Hey guys, today I will be coloring using markers and other stuff. The markers we're going to be using today are from this 216 piece set of brush and chisel tip Ohuhu markers. They come with these cool swatch cards that are already pre-labeled. All you gotta do is fill them in. It does take a while, but believe me, it is well worth it. We are going to be coloring this gas mask person that I drew on Procreate and transferred onto this piece of watercolor paper. I'm going to take this light shadow pink, ironic, as the very first color I'm using because working from light to dark is what I found works best for my style. And first, we're going to lay down our base layer to be able to see our image more clearly and get a general idea of what colors we're going to be using to create depth through shadows and highlights. Now with this piece, I had no intention of creating what he's wearing pink. In my mind, I envisioned a dark red or maroon, but laying down this pink here gives me the ability to layer a lot more on top of it to eventually create depth and an almost semi-realistic look. And now that the base layer for his rubber-ish suit is down, it's time to apply the first shadow layer. I'm applying it to every area that will not be touched by the light source, which in this particular drawing is going to be in front and above Mr. Gas Mask Man. I typically have an idea where my light source is going to be during the drawing stage. For me, I always tend to have my light sources come from the right side of the page. I don't know why. I don't know when I began to prefer it that way, but in almost everything I draw, even when I tattoo, the light source is always on the right, shadows are on the left. So if you're an artist and have that same tendency to keep your light source coming from the same place in all your work, just know you're not alone. Here we're introducing some red as a shadow layer. I'll still be adding more shadow layers on top of this, but I really wanted the red to finally settle in since I've decided that this rubber suit, or whatever it's made of, is going to be red. I think here, more than everywhere else in the drawing, you can really see that depth start to show. You can see the highlights really separating themselves from the shadows more and more with every layer that I add. And here's an even darker red that's really going to solidify where the light source is and force those highlights to truly stand out as their own layer. And now we're going to repeat the process starting with the base layer for the chest plate / armor for this guy. Since I want to give the effect of a tough chest plate, I'm going to be adding quite a few layers to it to give it some rugged, beat up texture. I want it to look old and worn by adding some rust and hopefully create an almost mechanical look. This first shadow layer for the armor plating is a little bit more challenging than on the rubber suit because of the complexity of all the details spread across it. Luckily, I didn't draw too many details or even fine details at that. But anytime you're creating the illusion of light, you have to remember that a light source does exist and it's hitting or missing everything you're drawing. When you have all these nooks and crannies or things sticking out of the armor plate, like in this case, you have to be conscious of how those things are affected by the light source. And here we have the base layers with the initial shadows. And here's the first textured layer on the armor plate, which I applied with the chiseled side of the marker. Look at that, and the mask is on. Now, I'm gonna quote unquote apply a glaze over this entire thing. Obviously, the rubber suit is red with its shadows and highlights, and the armor is a warm grayish color. But the world I imagine this guy's in will have different colors and different lighting, just like in our world. If you go outside on a sunny day, your clothes takes on a warmer hue. If you're standing out next to a neon sign, the color of your clothes will adjust accordingly. So that's all I'm doing. It's basically like when you apply a wash with watercolor. It brings everything together as the foundation that you build the rest of the details and the textures on. And now, one of my favorite parts of this whole process, using colored pencils. I'm using Prismacolor because I bought quite a few sets once when I was super into hyperrealism, so now I have a lot of colored pencils. But anyway, this step in the process is where it all begins to feel real. I'll keep the talking to a minimum after this so you can see why I love this part of the process so much, but just watch how those shadow layers I applied earlier begin to blend with the color pencil so beautifully and almost sink into the paper.